Can you speak specifically to gout and the safety of somebody with a history of gout converting to carnivore? Thank you all. From Lone and Dr. Baker.
Well, I mean, we typically associate gout with high levels of uric acid, but the reality is it is one part of that equation, and gout is really a metabolic issue. It is a complex uh, thing that occurs. It's I've operated on a lot of people with gout, uh, doing arthroscopies and surgical excisions on that, and I've rarely seen somebody express gout that didn't have some kind of underlying metabolic issue, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and so on and so forth. And you can have gout with relatively low levels of uric acid. You can not have gout with relatively high levels of uric acid. And what I would say is that maybe in the short term, if you're particularly metabolically compromised, and you go carnivore and you increase your purine consumption, you might have a flare initially. You might have to still take the standard regimens, the allopurinol, the colchicines, the anti-inflammatories to get through it. But over time, as your metabolic health will improve, the likelihood of you flaring your gout is going to go down tremendously. And in fact, most people, even with gout, when they go carnivore, often just don't have gout flares. There's a small percentage that do, so you have to be mindful of that. And you still have to treat it because it's can be very painful. But again, gout is not just about uric acid. There's many things that go on. Even body temperature. Why does it happen in your big toe mostly? It's the coldest part of your body, and so it causes the crystals to precipitate there. So there's a lot of factors that go into gout, and it's not just how much meat you might eat. And again, if you're worried about that, obviously fructose and alcohol would be huge drivers of gout. So get metabolically healthy, and you won't have to worry about it.
Great. Moving on, this is from Fish. So, Fish, yes. Let me show it up on screen. Fish Jacks. Hello all, I hope you're well. Can discontinuing to Sabri infusion because of side effects be more risky? I'm over the side effects.
So, it depends on what you're taking this for. It's typically used for autoimmune conditions, which I think everyone here probably would agree that this is something that a carnivore diet works extremely well for. That eliminating out all sort of plants, everything else except meat and water, especially red meat and water going on a lion diet, that this can significantly improve people's autoimmunity. I think this is in large. I think from what I can see, autoimmunity is the body reacting to different sorts of toxins that get in the body, and these toxins are probably causing some problem, attacking your body, and you're making antibodies towards them, and your body's getting hit in the crossfire. So we take a lot of these immune modulating drugs to suppress your body from defending itself, which is helpful in certain circumstances, but it's really not addressing the underlying cause. So depending on what sort of autoimmune issue that you have, and depending on how well that's being treated with your diet, I would strongly recommend being on a strict red meat and water diet, the ruminant animal meat and water diet, so like a lion diet, and then see how you go. If you're a few months in, say if you have Crohn's or something like that, and if you have a few months in and you're not having any flare-ups and you're feeling great, that's a reasonable time to start thinking about coming off of those sorts of infusions. Work with your doctor, but that is something that people have been able to do, especially with things like Crohn's. I've even seen it with multiple sclerosis and many other sorts of autoimmune issues. But if you're still having bits of flare-ups like that, then definitely not the right time to think about coming off the medication.
Yeah, I'll just add, as Anthony was saying, Sabri is an autoimmune modulating drug typically used for Crohn's disease. But it is important to not just cold turkey quit a lot of these drugs, and because they can set you back significantly to the point where maybe it precipitates some sort of surgical treatment, which we otherwise could avoid. At Rivero, that is what we do. We literally have physicians that are trained to help people come off these medications. So however you decide to do that, it's not bad to come off these drugs, and obviously preferable. These drugs, side effects include increased rates of infection, increased rates of cancers, so on and so forth. So it's great to get off them if you can. but just be careful how you do it, and definitely involve some sort of physician intervention.
Dante, did you want to add to this?
Oh, no, I didn't have anything for this one. I'm sorry.
No worries, just checking. Okay, we'll go on. Okay. IBSD 25 years, carnivore 5 years, lion diet 29 days plus iodine. Pain is gone, but diarrhea persists. Doctors, nurse practitioners, GI doctors, unhelpful. Suggestions, Dante?
29 days plus iodine. Well, first of all, have you tested to see if you needed iodine? But I don't think that's going to be a huge one. Let's see, diarrhea persisting. It could depend on how strict you're being with lion diet. I noticed that if I cheat just a little bit, that I'll go back to what we call keto flu, or, a polite way of saying having diarrhea, basically, in my opinion. Because anytime that I have something that I shouldn't, it triggers that, and it could last for weeks. So if you're giving yourself a treat once every 2 weeks or once a week or once every 3 weeks or anything like that, it could keep you in that mode for a long period of time.
You also want to check with your healthcare provider, make sure you don't have a gastroenteritis, colitis, and something else that may be causing persistent diarrhea. So we can't ignore that. You may have a gastritis, need antibiotic, but get checked also.
Great. This is from Andrew. I travel around the country every week and thought it would be difficult finding carnivorous options. After 2 years of carnivore, it is actually easy. What is everyone's go-to location to get carnivore meals, and what is it?
Well, I mean, I always try to keep it, from like a grocery store, getting like whole meats and things like that. And I mean, even like going camping, I'll just get steaks and cut them up into little cubes and use that as on a stick, and those are my marshmallows, and I just sort of roast them over a fire. It's great. It's fantastic. I've even had like long road trips where I didn't have a chance to cook, where I just get like a whole ham and some butter, and just like slices of ham and butter, and that works well as well. And even just raw meat. But as far as like stopping by stores and things like that, sometimes you can go to even fast food places and just get burger patties. I do that a lot in airports when I'm traveling all over the place, and that's really my only access. Just get a stack of burger patties just on their own, and just eat those. So whatever's sort of available in that sense. And other times I just don't eat. If there's not something that I want to eat that I don't think is good for me, I just don't eat. It's it's not that I'm fasting, but it's like I don't have to eat. I'm not starving, and so if there's nothing around me that I think is good for me, I just won't eat. And it's not that big of a deal. And I get to a point where a place where I can eat and I eat something better, and I just catch up then. It's not that big a deal.
Dante, and then Dr. Ovadia, and then we'll go down the table. Go ahead.
When it comes to eating out, my best suggestion is just to avoid it if you can, but it's not always easy. And like Dr. Chafee said, one of the things that I try to do is if I have to eat out, I'd prefer not to eat. But there are times when I've stopped by McDonald's or someplace like that, but then, there's other things that are in the meats that they use at these places, like they're finding high amounts of microplastics. So you got to get picky about it. I think Five Guys is probably one of your better options for meat, as long as they're not using any oil on the meat. And I understand that they do not. Also, be careful when you eat out. Most of the time, the meat, when I get it from places like McDonald's, they don't use enough salt, first of all, to give it any flavor. For some reason, it just tastes bland. And the salt that you get when you go out almost always has dextrose in it. I thought it was a rare thing when I first heard it was Dr. Saladino talking about the fact that McDonald's had dextrose in their salt. And I thought, well, why in the world would they do that? They claim to use it as an anti-caking agent. And then I started looking at other salts in other places like Circle K and convenience stores where I might want to grab some. They had dextrose. Look at a bottle of Morton salt, has dextrose. So you want to carry some good salt with you if you're going to be eating meat out. And just tell them to cook it without any seasoning. You'll add your own.
Awesome. Dr. O?
Yeah, as someone who travels a lot certainly deal with this. I agree with what Anthony said. You know, sometimes fasting or just not eating, becomes the best option.
Companies making money off of people's misery, and they're just addiction, and I think it's the worst thing. I mean, it's the biggest thing I want to talk about now. It's just that, because I see it everywhere.
Yeah, I also failed lap band surgery and many diets. I got up to 800 pounds with a lap band and failed diets. Carnivore was the only thing that fixed me.